I think for a lot of people, for like instance, parenting and intimate relationships are really hard because our partners and our kids can push our parts buttons really easily. And these are the people that are supposed to love us the most. So when they're upset with us, it's, at least from, I can speak for myself, it's way more dire than if somebody else is upset with me.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so, and then people who have different feelings about that. So, um,
I love what you're saying about the instant response, though, right? Just noticing what's my instant response, because that's going to be my parts. And then I can turn towards those parts so that I
mhm,
can really get to know them. So that then when I have another interaction with
right,
person A, then I can be aware. So that instant response actually gives me a trailhead or gives me sort of a cue. Oh, here's some parts here.
that's right. Yeah, and it's almost like noticing that space between the stimulus of what somebody says or does to then what do I actually do.
Yeah.
And oftentimes when we're not with our parts, it's a reaction. And when we pause in that space and, hey, who's here? Hang on, hang on. And I love how like Dick will often say, like, before a presentation, he'll say to his parts, can you just give me a shot? And
Mm.
I found something like that helps me a lot. I'll just say to my parts, can you just let me do this? Is it okay to give me space and let me respond? Like and I might, sometimes we don't have a lot of time, but then they're watching as I interact with the person and respond as opposed to react. And a lot of times I'll look back at my parts and say like, well, how'd I do? Because I know what they want. They want this to go smoothly. They want the person to like us. They want the person to agree with us or be agreeable, not necessarily agree, but like not be in conflict. So I think that, um, yeah, within that space, there's, it's almost like we're slowing down time if we can.
That I also love the going back to the parts and saying, well, how did I do?
Yeah. I learned that with parenting because they're like, we're just going to stomp in the room, right? We're going to stomp, we're going to say it, and he's going to do it or she's going to do it. And I'm like, okay, you want that to happen, but it's okay if I handle it. And then we talk and we do the thing, and then they do the thing that my parts wanted them to do. Then I look over and I'm like, well, how'd I do? And they'll usually like give me like the, like the thumbs up or like the pointed, like the wink and the pointed fingers. And they're
Good
like, yeah,
job.
good job. and
I
and
love
so
that. I think that's how we become more self-led, right? Is that
right.
we're like this building this relationship with our parts, right? The one that wants to go stomp in, like, all right, buddy, hold on a second, let me try. I'm gonna go in. Then of course I'm gonna have to turn towards, or I want to turn towards that one that wants to stomp and say, how did I do? And how are you doing now?
hmm And I think that builds trust. So they let you lead quicker and quicker and quicker. So then I think that's why I wanted to call this book Self-Led, because that kind of work with our parts hopefully leads us to that as
Yeah.
much as possible.
Well, you know what? It really is said it covers everything, right? Like if I want to lose weight or I want to start an exercise program, if I want to be more financially independent, if I want to be a better parent, like sort of think about if I want to meditate more, if I like for the things, if I think about in my like list of life things, I often will be like, okay, well, you could do a program or you could just work with your parts. Like, okay, well, I'll work with my parts, right? It's sort of, it always comes back to that. Like, okay, if I want to do blank, I can try to do some behavior changes, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I almost always these days say, or you can work with your parts because I know that's what's going to get me. Maybe it doesn't get me the thing, like maybe it doesn't get me the weight loss or the
Right.
financial, but it gets me what I want, which is to be more self-led.
Right. And if it'll probably allow us to participate in those programs fully.